The Must-See Film Club.
Let's start with a sound. It's one of the most chilling sounds in film history, a simple, off-key whistle of "In the Hall of the Mountain King."
It instantly signals the presence of the child murderer Hans Beckert in Fritz Lang's 1931 masterpiece, M. It's his audio signature. But here's the incredible part. The actor, Peter Lorre, couldn't whistle.
He couldn't do it. The whistle you hear, the sound that defines this iconic villain, was actually performed by the director, Fritz Lang himself. Lorre just mimed it on screen.
That single detail opens up the central question of this entire story. How do we separate the performance from the performer? And how did an actor who couldn't even produce his character's signature sound create a portrayal so powerful that it would define the cinematic villain for the next century?
It's a performance that, according to Rotten Tomatoes critics, is his absolute finest. But it also came at an immense cost, both personally and professionally. This role made Peter Lorre a star, and it also put him in a box for the rest of his life.
To understand the performance, you have to understand the environment it came from. This wasn't just another film, it was an obsession for Fritz Lang. The story was heavily influenced by real-life serial killers of the era, particularly Peter Kürten, the so-called vampire of Dusseldorf.
Lang's preparation was intense. The research shows he spent 8 days inside a German mental institution, interviewing several child murderers to get inside their heads. He wanted a chilling realism, even casting actual criminals as extras in the film.
That's amazing. And apparently, his method was a little too effective. During the shoot, 25 cast members were arrested by police who thought they were rounding up actual criminals.
In the middle of all this, you have Peter Lorre. He was an established theater actor at the time, but M was only his third screen role and his first major lead, and Lang was absolutely certain about him. According to Lorre's biography, Lang had him in mind from the start and didn't even require a screen test. He was convinced Lorre was perfect.
What's wild is the schedule Lorre was keeping. He was pulling double duty, filming M during the day and then running to the theater at night to perform on stage in a play called Squaring the Circle. The intensity must have been unbelievable.
Totally. And this pressure cooker environment, combined with Lang's obsessive pursuit of authenticity, is the backdrop for one of the most distinguished performances in film history. Lang saw something in Lorre's raspy voice, bulging eyes, and emotive acting that he knew would be unforgettable.
He saw the living contradiction that critics would later write about. This baby-faced man who could project such profound inner turmoil. Lang didn't just cast an actor, he cast a presence that would haunt the film, even when he wasn't on screen.
Let's break down that performance, because it's a masterclass in minimalism. Roger Ebert pointed out that Lorre has surprisingly limited screen time. For much of the film, he's a ghost, a silhouette, a shadow, that haunting whistle.
Exactly. IMDb notes he has barely a dozen lines, but the impact is immense. It's described as a masterpiece of mime and suggestion. Lang often filmed him in long shots early on, directing him toward what's called a non-naturalistic performance and exaggerated gesture. It's meant to be unsettling and alienating.
But it's the naturalism that's so terrifying. One analysis I read called his portrayal terribly natural and realistic, saying he avoided flashy tricks for a blunt portrayal that was disturbing in its simplicity. It's this matter-of-fact manner that gets under your skin.
It's all in the face. He had what one critic called an expressive face that could look gentle one moment and reveal a deep insanity the next without ever feeling false. He wields this softness as a weapon. You see this man who looks, as Ebert said, corpulent, baby-faced, and it makes the monster within even more horrifying.
You see it in the scenes where he's looking at himself in the mirror, contorting his face, trying to fight the compulsion. He's portraying a man consumed by an unbeatable monster inside him. There's a theory that this owes something to his work with Bertolt Brecht in the theater, this ability to portray a frightened animal when he's cornered.
And this all culminates in that final scene, the kangaroo court, where he's been captured by the city's criminals. His monologue is legendary. He completely breaks down, and his performance shifts from vicious anger to pathetic sadness. He's not just a monster anymore. He's a man in agony, expressing grief over himself.
That's the key. He utters that famous line, "I can't help myself." In that moment, he becomes, as Litro magazine put it, a tragic figure. He's pleading for understanding of his uncontrollable impulses. He evokes what one writer called sad terror. You are repulsed by his actions, but you also feel a shred of pity for his tormented existence.
He makes you feel for the devil. That's the genius of it. He shows you the conspicuous and unmistakable vestiges of his humanity, and that is infinitely more disturbing than a simple, one-dimensional villain. So, the film is a critical success, and Lore's performance is hailed as a sensation. This should be the perfect launchpad for a major international career.
It was, but it was a very specific kind of launchpad. The performance was so effective, so iconic, that it created what Berghahn Books calls an extra-filmic persona. Peter Lorre, the man, became inseparable from the disturbed, villainous characters he played.
This is the classic typecasting trap. Wikipedia's entry on M notes this immediately. The role typecast him in villainous roles for the rest of his career. Think of his later films like Mad Love or his Hollywood roles. He was always the sinister, untrustworthy outsider.
It's the ultimate double-edged sword, the very thing that demonstrates your incredible range and depth as an actor becomes the reason producers can only see you as one thing. His ability to portray this psychologically complex killer was so convincing that Hollywood essentially said, "Great, do that again, and again, and again."
One source I saw went so far as to say his importance in film history would be secure even if M were his only film. That's how singular this performance was. But for an actor, that's also a kind of prison. He built this incredible character, and then he had to live in its shadow.
It truly had the biggest impact on Lorre's life, defining not just his career, but public perception of him. He gave this hauntingly human performance, showing the man inside the monster, and the industry responded by only wanting to see the monster.
And you have to wonder how much the physical and psychological toll of the shoot itself played into that. The lines between where Hans Beckert ended and Peter Lorre began might have been blurred, not just for the audience, but for him as well, especially given the methods Lang employed to get that performance out of him.
This is where the story gets really complicated. For years, the narrative was that Fritz Lang, the genius auteur, crafted this masterpiece. But as scholars look closer, the dynamic between Lang and Lorre becomes much more contentious.
There are reports that Lang's methods were extreme. One source describes him subjecting Lorre to excessive physical brutality during that final trial sequence to elicit a genuinely hysterical countenance from him. That raw, desperate terror we see on screen, it may have been very, very real.
That's horrifying, and it reportedly irrevocably tainted Lorre's view of the director. You have to question the ethics of that. Where is the line between demanding greatness from an actor and simply abusing them for the sake of the shot?
It creates a huge tension over the legacy of the film. Whose performance is it? Is it Lore's incredible talent for embodying this tortured soul? Or is it Lang's ability to manipulate and push an actor to his breaking point? The answer is probably somewhere in the middle, but it's an uncomfortable middle.
Making it even more complicated is how Lang talked about it later in life. Research suggests that in interviews, Lang often told anecdotes that would diminish Lore's political economy and creative agency. He seemed keen to position himself as the sole creative authority, the puppet master pulling the strings.
Which is fascinating because it mirrors the power dynamics in the film itself. The themes of control, manipulation, and a higher power dictating your fate. Art imitating life, or in this case, the making of the art imitating the art itself. It leaves us with this unresolved question. Was Peter Lorre a co-creator of this iconic villain, or was he its first victim?
Regardless of how it was achieved, the impact of that performance is undeniable. Hans Beckert became the blueprint for the modern psychological villain. He's not a cackling, mustache-twirling caricature. He's a tormented anti-villain.
Absolutely. Movie Sense Analysis calls him a tormented anti-villain driven by compulsive pathology. This introduces moral complexity. It's not about good versus evil. It's about a man fighting a battle within himself and losing. That's a far more interesting and terrifying concept.
You can draw a direct line from Lore's performance to some of the most iconic villains of the last few decades. A Musatrature article points specifically to characters like Hannibal Lecter or Heath Ledger's Joker.
That's a perfect comparison. Think about it. They are characters who are both repulsive and strangely compelling. They have an internal logic, a pathology that makes them tragic figures as much as they are monsters. Ledger's Joker, in particular, with his "I'm a dog chasing cars" speech, echoes Beckert's "I can't help myself." It's the same plea of being an agent of a chaos you can't control.
Lore's genius was in creating a character that elicited both sympathy and terror. He proved that the most frightening villain isn't one who is inhuman, but one who is terrifyingly, tragically human. A person who is aware of the darkness inside them, but is powerless to stop it.
And that's the enduring legacy. In 1931, in his first major role, Peter Lorre didn't just play a villain. He forged the archetype. He created a new language for depicting evil on screen, not as a choice, but as a disease. And it's a language that cinema is still speaking today.